Hello, fellow Americans. Are you ready to uncover the shocking truths that have been hidden from us for far too long? In today's eye-opening video, we're going to expose the 10 secrets FEMA doesn't want you to know. Trust me, once you're aware of these hidden facts, your perspective on disasters and emergency management will be forever changed. Since the days of the Obama administration, a veil of secrecy has surrounded FEMA's operations. It's high time we pull back the curtain and reveal what's really been going on. Have you ever found yourself questioning why so many survival experts and preppers avoid FEMA camps like the plague after a disaster strikes? There are some very serious reasons behind this widespread distrust. The amount of secrecy surrounding FEMA's activities is truly astonishing. What could they be planning that they wouldn't want us, the American people, to find out? Today we're going to dig deep and uncover the clandestine operations and behind-the-scenes actions within those camps. What's really happening within those heavily guarded fences? What are they hiding from us to warrant such tight-lipped secrecy and control? In this video, I'm going to share with you the top 10 secrets that FEMA has desperately tried to keep hidden from the public eye. These are revelations that could change everything you thought you knew about disaster preparedness and recovery. Buckle up and get ready for an information-packed journey as we expose the secrets FEMA doesn't want you to discover. Number 1, FEMA doesn't want you to know that their assistance application process can be quite a struggle. Imagine this: a big storm just rolled through your town. Or maybe a devastating earthquake has left everything in chaos. You're in desperate need of help, but here's the kicker. FEMA pushes for you to apply for assistance online or through the phone. Think about it. When disaster strikes, power lines get knocked down, phone lines might be dead, and public facilities like libraries, which often provide internet access, could be entirely out of commission. So where does that leave someone in urgent need of assistance? Kind of in a dire predicament, wouldn't you say? The official advice from FEMA is to go to their website, Disaster Assistance. Use their mobile app, or call their helpline at 1-800-621-3362. It sounds straightforward, right? But reality paints a different picture. Picture yourself scrambling to gather all the necessary information. Your insurance details, descriptions of the damage, and even your bank information, all while dealing with the immediate aftermath of a disaster. In the chaos that follows, who has the time or the resources to sit down and fill out a comprehensive online application? Sure, FEMA offers some in-person help through their disaster recovery centers. But here's the catch: they're not always immediately available or easily accessible. These centers might take some time to set up, and not everyone can get to one right away. During those critical first moments when you need assistance the most, these bureaucratic hurdles can be incredibly frustrating. Does this digital-first approach truly serve everyone in the aftermath of a disaster? Or does it leave too many people out in the cold? It certainly raises questions about FEMA's preparedness and its effectiveness in helping everyone when disaster strikes. Point 2, inadequate disaster supplies. So let's talk about what really happens when a disaster strikes, using Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy as prime examples. During these catastrophic events, FEMA took a lot of criticism for not being able to deliver food and water fast enough to those in desperate need. People were stranded, waiting for help that seemed like it would never come. This raises a glaring question. If FEMA struggled during these events, how would they cope with a disaster of even larger magnitude? While it's true that the Strategic National Stockpile includes millions of meals and liters of water, let's get real for a moment. In the face of a nationwide emergency affecting multiple states at once, how long do you think those supplies would truly last? An EMP, for instance, could knock out our entire transportation and logistics network. Imagine trying to distribute essential supplies without functioning trucks, roads, or even communication systems. It sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare, doesn't it? And let's not forget about the budget issues. FEMA often finds its funding cut, which means there is less money available for stocking up on essential supplies or preparing for those what-if scenarios. Most of their budget gets funneled into dealing with immediate events. Floods, fires, hurricanes, you name it. The result? There's not much left for preparing for potential future disasters on a massive scale. This is why seasoned preppers take matters into their own hands. They look at FEMA's track record and notice a troubling pattern. One that instills little confidence in the agency's ability to support everyone when the big one hits. It's not about being controversial. It's about pragmatic preparation. Hence, you'll hear a lot about people stocking their own pantries and basements, following the mantra, better safe than sorry. 3, the shocking truth about FEMA trailers. Imagine being displaced from your home after a catastrophic event and being offered shelter, only to discover that your temporary haven is actually a toxic trap. Following the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, FEMA quickly acquired 120,000 trailers and mobile homes to accommodate the countless residents left without homes. However, These emergency shelters soon turned into a nightmare. Occupants began experiencing a range of alarming health issues, persistent nosebleeds, severe headaches, and respiratory problems, all accompanied by a strange, chemical-like odor permeating their living space. It wasn't long before the source of these ailments came to light. These trailers contained dangerously high levels of formaldehyde, a volatile organic compound known to cause a slew of health problems. Despite the pre-existing knowledge of formaldehyde's risks in mobile homes, FEMA bypassed standard regulations categorizing these trailers as temporary housing, thus evading more stringent safety checks. In a controversial move, FEMA stopped testing for formaldehyde in 2006, ignoring the growing concerns. But the story doesn't end there. Determined independent organizations took matters into their own hands, conducting their own tests that confirmed fears formaldehyde concentrations in these trailers were found to be many times above the safe levels recommended by health guidelines. This prompted FEMA to reconsider its approach. Nowadays, these trailers are viewed as a last resort, with a stronger focus on financial assistance to help those affected by disasters. So what does this mean for our future? With natural disasters happening more frequently, the unsettling question remains, could FEMA's toxic trailers make an unwelcome return? The solution lies in proactive preparedness. By planning ahead and striving for self-sufficiency, we can reduce the need to rely on government interventions like FEMA. This level of independence helps safeguard against the risks that FEMA's quick fixes might hide. 4. FEMA's stockpile of coffins. What are they really preparing for? When it comes to FEMA, most people think of natural disaster response and emergency preparedness. But what if I told you that FEMA might be gearing up for something far more severe than just hurricanes or earthquakes? Recently, it has come to light that the agency is quietly amassing a massive stockpile of coffins. Yes, you heard that right, coffins, and a lot of them. This raises some serious questions about what exactly FEMA is anticipating. Sure, any responsible agency should prepare for emergencies. But the sheer scale of FEMA's preparations is not just startling, it's downright suspicious. Why would FEMA need such an enormous number of coffins unless they are expecting, or perhaps are even aware of an impending disaster that surpasses typical emergency scenarios? This is not merely routine preparedness. This hints at a looming crisis that could be far worse than what the government is letting on. The secretive nature of FEMA's actions has only fueled more speculation and concern among the public. Could these preparations be tied to catastrophic events the public hasn't been informed about? Perhaps escalating natural disasters due to climate change or even the horrifying possibility of bioterrorism. The lack of transparency from FEMA isn't just frustrating, it's terrifying. The idea that an agency under the Department of Homeland Security is preparing for a disaster huge enough to require thousands of coffins suggests they might know something we don't. Is FEMA merely exercising extreme caution? Or do they have knowledge of threats that they've kept hidden from the public eye? It makes one ponder the true extent of the dangers we could be facing. The notion that the government might be withholding critical information about future threats is deeply troubling and could point to an overreaching government power keeping its citizens in the dark. What else could FEMA be hiding from us? The mystery of these coffins and the implications of what they represent is something every American should be aware of. Number 5 on our list of shocking truths about FEMA is the disturbingly unjust distribution of financial assistance. This isn't just unfair, it's almost as if it's intentional. We've uncovered how FEMA's financial aid systematically disadvantages the less affluent, and the information emerging from FEMA's own investigations is both alarming and revealing. Lower-income families, even when facing similar or worse damages, receive significantly less assistance compared to their wealthier counterparts. This issue isn't just economic, it's deeply intertwined with race. According to NPR, it's clear that areas with higher minority populations and lower incomes get substantially less help than affluent, predominantly white neighborhoods. Think about this. Funds meant to help people rebuild their lives are being distributed in a skewed manner that contributes to gentrification and social displacement. When these essential resources are withheld, residents in disadvantaged neighborhoods are often left with no choice but to abandon their homes and communities. On the other hand, if these individuals were given adequate support, they could repair or rebuild their homes, preserving the fabric of their neighborhoods and avoiding the chaos that displacement creates. The consequences of this inequitable distribution of funds are profound and far-reaching, perpetuating cycles of poverty and segregation. This isn't a minor oversight. It's a critical flaw in policy that demands immediate attention and rectification. We need to fundamentally reassess and recalibrate how aid is allocated to ensure true fairness and equity across all communities, irrespective of economic or racial background. Let's shine a light on this urgent issue and push for change that benefits everyone equally. Number 6. FEMA doesn't want you to know that you might not qualify for assistance. When disaster strikes, FEMA can be a crucial lifeline. But getting their assistance isn't as simple as it seems. You might assume that if you apply for FEMA aid, you'll automatically receive help, but that's far from the truth. Qualification for FEMA assistance hinges on a variety of factors, such as the severity of the disaster, your level of insurance coverage, and if the damaged property is your primary residence. Imagine your house gets hit by a massive storm and there's significant water damage. You're racing against time to start repairs, because issues like water damage can escalate quickly into bigger problems like mold infestation or structural damage. Yet here's the catch. You can't begin repairs right away. You need to wait for FEMA's approval, which means applying and then enduring a potentially long wait. This delay can lead to increased damage and higher repair costs. Even more frustrating is that the financial help you finally get from FEMA often falls short. It rarely covers all your repair expenses and tends to arrive much later than you'd hope. By the time you get the funds, the damage may have worsened, compounding your repair bills. So while FEMA's support is indispensable, depending solely on it can be risky. Therefore, having backups like a robust insurance policy and a stash of emergency savings is smart. These can help you spring into action immediately and cover any gaps left by FEMA's delayed and sometimes insufficient aid. While FEMA's assistance is vital, relying on it alone could leave you in an even more precarious situation than before the disaster struck. 7. FEMA's overreach into smaller disasters and the impact on major emergencies. Have you ever wondered why FEMA sometimes seems overwhelmed during major disasters? It turns out there's a significant issue with how the agency handles smaller-scale incidents, and it's something they don't really advertise. Critics argue that FEMA's involvement in minor disasters is not only unnecessary, but is also diverting crucial resources away from truly catastrophic events. This overreach is stretching FEMA's capabilities thin and mismanaging federal funds, raising questions about their priorities and effectiveness. Despite the fact that some states have budget surpluses robust enough to handle minor incidents on their own, FEMA has routinely stepped in, pouring resources into situations that arguably don't require federal intervention. This has led to an expenditure of about $3 billion on what many consider redundant aid. It's a staggering amount, especially when you think about how that money could have been saved for more severe emergencies. What's even more concerning is how this practice impacts FEMA's readiness for larger disasters. Remember Hurricane Maria? Or Hurricane Katrina? These were events where FEMA's response was heavily criticized for being slow and uncoordinated. Critics believe that when FEMA gets bogged down with smaller-scale disasters, they are less prepared for the big ones, ultimately making their response less effective when it truly matters. The problems don't stop there. Structural issues within FEMA itself have been revealed time and again during major disasters. When an organization isn't streamlined and its resources are stretched thin, things can spiral out of control rapidly. This makes FEMA's strategy of intervening in smaller incidents even more questionable. So why does FEMA continue to intervene in these smaller disasters? It's a balancing act, a tightrope walk between being overzealous and underprepared. The debates around this issue are heated, with strong opinions on both sides about how FEMA should operate and allocate its resources. Many people believe that FEMA should be more selective about where and when to intervene, by focusing on truly significant emergencies and leaving smaller incidents to state governments with surplus budgets. FEMA could preserve resources and enhance their preparedness for when it's genuinely needed. 8. The truth behind the peanut butter scare of 2009. You won't believe what went down during the peanut butter scare of 2009. Mainstream media and FEMA might paint it as an isolated slip-up, but it's actually a revealing glimpse into a much deeper issue with disaster relief under administrations like Obama's. Let's dive into the shocking details. Picture this. Post-severe weather events in Kentucky and Arkansas, FEMA swiftly distributed food kits to disaster-struck areas. But here's the kicker. They included packets of peanut butter that were under recall for salmonella risks. Yes, FEMA knew about the contamination and still sent out those kits. This is not a case of poor quality control. It's a glaring example of negligence that could have had deadly consequences. When the contamination came to light, a frantic scramble ensued. FEMA and local governments were advising thousands of people in shelters to discard any peanut butter packets they'd received. Imagine being in a disaster zone, struggling to get by, and being told that the very food you were given for sustenance could make you gravely ill. FEMA claimed these recalls were merely precautionary measures. But isn't it suspicious how quickly these episodes fade from the public eye? There's no lasting indignation, No significant reform, just a fleeting mention before the story disappears altogether. What about the Peanut Corporation of America, the source of the contaminated products? Their peanut butter linked to hundreds of salmonella cases. But it took a criminal investigation to bring any consequences to light. This isn't just about a single instance of contamination. It's about a systemic failure in handling public safety. Why isn't there an uproar? Why isn't anyone held accountable? We need to start demanding more transparency and responsibility from those who are supposed to protect us. We cannot accept these so-called precautionary measures as the new norm. It's high time we question what FEMA and similar agencies might be hiding from us. Number 9. You won't believe this shocking truth. FEMA sent 83,000 debt notices to hurricane victims. It's unbelievable, but 100% real. When victims were struggling to recover from the devastating impacts of Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, and Wilma, what did FEMA do? Instead of offering more aid, they demanded money back. Yep, you heard that right. Due to mishandling funds, FEMA accidentally overpaid over $385 million in aid. Their solution? They sent out 83,000 debt notices to people barely getting by, asking for an average of $4.620 each. Now just let that sink in. Survivors who lost everything were slapped with a bill instead of receiving the support they desperately needed. It's like kicking someone when they're already down, and it's outrageous. How can an agency, designed to help people in times of crisis, become part of the problem? This situation truly makes you question the effectiveness and compassion of FEMA's disaster response efforts. Engaging with this topic reveals a deeper problem far beyond mere incompetence. It challenges the entire ethos of our federal disaster response system. 10. The dire staffing crisis. You've probably heard about the labor shortages affecting various industries lately, right? But what you might not know is that even FEMA, America's emergency response giant, is facing a huge staffing dilemma. Imagine needing help during a major disaster, but the responders aren't qualified or there simply aren't enough of them. This is not a future scenario. It's happening right now. In 2022, we saw the grim reality of what happens when there's a critical shortage of skilled emergency personnel. FEMA is overwhelmed. Disasters are striking with increasing frequency and intensity. Yet the number of trained and ready workers is woefully insufficient. Remember Hurricane Katrina? FEMA's response was widely criticized, and for good reason. They couldn't manage the cascading crises effectively. Fast forward to today, and not much has improved. Whether it's dealing with a hurricane followed by flooding or an earthquake sparking enormous fires, FEMA just can't keep up. It's not just about the initial disaster either. The aftershocks, like contaminated water supplies and secondary fires, make rescue efforts even more challenging. And let's face it, if FEMA struggles with these basics, what can we expect when the next big one hits? Personal preparedness has never been more important, because the sad truth is, as long as FEMA is caught in this staffing quagmire, their ability to help us in life or death situations is severely compromised. So take matters into your own hands. Prepare, stay informed, and don't just rely on FEMA to come to the rescue.